Hello, everyone. Welcome to our guest panelists and everyone that has joined us on the call today. We're excited to have with us today guest speakers from Barrett Pet Food Innovations, Drinkworks, Home Bar by Keurig, Plex, a Rockwell Automation Company, and myself from Revolution Group. The focus today is operational efficiency. Simply put, how to make more with less. And we're going to hear from our panelists today in these specific areas of how they're reducing cost and increasing efficiency in the areas of supply chain and inventory control, quality, and production. My name is Pat Welsh. I'm the Director of Manufacturing ERP Consulting at Revolution Group, where we spend 100% of our time focused on making manufacturing easier by leveraging world-class technology. The panelists we have with us today are Tara Newcomb, who's the Director of Systems Integration and Financial Operations at Drinkworks. Nikki Beebehauser, who's the Director of Operations, and Craig Luberts, who's the Quality Assurance Manager, both with Barrett Pet Food Innovations, and Jim Bressler, who's the Director of Product Management, Food and Beverage at Plex. I'm going to stop sharing the screens and start to focus on our panelists. So let's get into some of the dialogue, and to do so, let's start with a little bit of background. Tara, let's start with you first. Drinkworks is really transforming the way we purchase cocktails and enjoy cocktails by manufacturing specialty cocktails that can be made in your home bar system. You started with Drinkworks in 2017. At its inception, you got the opportunity to launch the new business after spending 20 years with Anheuser-Busch InBev. Tell us a little bit more about Drinkworks and how it's changed, how the business has changed since its inception.
Thank you, Pat, and good morning, everyone. So as Pat mentioned, Drinkworks was formed in 2017 with basically ideas on paper. Two major companies kind of came together. So we had the power of Anheuser-Busch and all the cocktails and beer that they make come together with Keurig, who makes amazing appliances. And when you put those two companies together, you basically have an appliance that makes these little pods that contain alcoholic beverages. Think of these as, this one is a Moscow Mule minus the water. You put this in the appliance, then you press a button, and then you get an amazing beverage. Simply as opening the top of a beer, you're going to get a Moscow Mule or the other 40 cocktails that we make right now. And then a little history about like how we've grown since 17. So like I said, we started as ideas on paper. We basically started with an empty manufacturing plant and behind Keurig. And we have built it from an empty manufacturing plant to 3 automated lines. When we started to fill these, it was all hands on deck. And yes, I had the opportunity to manually fill this for 12-hour shifts, which was thrilling and exciting. I think one day we reached 1,000 manually one day. We applauded, and I looked up our production numbers yesterday. Yesterday on one line, we made 57,000 of these yesterday on one of our 3 lines. And then my favorite example is when we first started, and I wish I had a picture of it, we had our production schedule on somebody's monitor in colorful little sticky notes all the way around the monitor. I just wish I had a picture of that. To now we use the power of Plex, and we've used that for about 1.5 years now.
Excellent, thank you very much. We appreciate the color and background. In your role with Drinkworks now, how do you focus and spend your time on a daily basis? What are you keying in on?
I have this really big, long, fancy title that basically says that I wear lots of hats at Drinkworks, right? So my really area of focus sums it up in like people, process, and technology, right? So I'm either the company problem solver, so I get thrown into problems to help solve it, and it's usually around people, process, and technology. And when I'm not solving some of the problems that we have around the company, I take my hat and I turn it around and I look for opportunities. So one of the opportunities that we're looking at now is across the company, what technologies or processes do we do that we could roll into Plex and actually maximize our value and our return on our investment, our Plex investment.
Great, thank you very much. Nikki and Craig, Barrett Pet Foods, family-owned operation, family-owned and operated, food extrusion, making over 150 pet food products and treats. Both of you have been there for about roughly 6 years and seen tremendous growth over that time. Nikki, could you give us a little bit of background on the company and how it's changed in the 6 years you've been there?
Yes, so we've seen a lot of growth, especially in just the last probably 3 years. When I first started, we had one production facility, one production line. We sometimes didn't even run our full 5 days a week for both packaging and production. We do manufacture all sorts of different products, anywhere from small animal, reptile, bird. Our biggest customers, we do your high-end, super premium, high meat inclusion, dog and cat foods. We did open another facility, and so we've grown quite a bit. We started with, when I was here, probably 25, maybe 30 employees, and now we have closer to almost 200 employees between the two facilities. We run 24/5 at both facilities, and our volumes have increased, and just the demand and even just everything that's been going on, our customers have not stopped growing, which is a good thing. We're always working on launching new products and coming out just with changes and just moving kind of just with how we see everything else changing. And it still is definitely a very family-run facility. Our owners all come into the office every day. It was mainly started at the current facility that we're at. Our original one was for an egg facility, and one of our owners, he still farms, and certain raw materials that he farms we buy from him, which is a very nice story for our customers, that if they come to see us, they can go out to the field, they can see where yellow peas or chickpeas, where they were grown and harvested, and then that in turn, then we buy them as a raw material and it goes into their finished products.
Excellent. Yeah, awesome. I think I read a recent stat that during the pandemic, there have been 12.6 million new pet adoptions.
Yeah, I was personally one of those at the ad of our family.
Great, great. Don't be surprised if my pet shows up here during the conversation here today. So thank you very much. So you started as a purchasing manager, now you're the director of operations. Both roles, of course, have a very significant impact on operations. So tell us just a little bit about what you're focused on a daily basis. What do you key in every day?
Mainly just reviewing kind of production, seeing where we're at, seeing if we're on schedule, behind schedule, making sure, that our purchasing side, that we have all of our raw materials, if there's any changes we need to be made. I also just help out with onboarding some new customers, with new projects. It changes a lot every day, just kind of seeing where we're at, but it's also checking our productions, whether it's our grinding of flour, if we're meeting our numbers there, kibble, bulk kibble being produced, and how we're doing on packaging and getting it out the door. Also kind of working with our warehousing and shipping side, just making sure that everything that we're producing isn't stockpiling, that we're getting everything out the door as fast as we can so that we don't run out of space, which tends to happen.
Great, thank you. It looks like Craig maybe has had to step away for a moment. Oh, there he is. Hi, Craig. Thanks. In your role as quality assurance manager, give us a little bit insight on what the daily business challenges you keep your eyes on.
I guess ensuring that we're making quality product and staying on top of onboarding new customers with building out specs and ensuring that we're gonna make and package product that exceeds their quality expectations. On top of that, ensuring that we're getting traceability of everything from beginning to end, from when it's received through production, packaging, and shipment, as well as utilizing Plex for our trace reports, things like that, to meet audits and requirements, things like that. We also utilize the finalized receipt process, giving our QA team the ability to ensure all receivings are accurate and, giving us a good foundation of tracing lot codes and things throughout the whole process.
Great, thank you. We'll talk more about about tying the quality status to inventory control when we get down into supply chain. Thank you, Jim. We've had the pleasure of partnering with Plex and implementing Plex Manufacturing Cloud for about 20 years now. You sit in the role as a director of product management, in a cloud offering that's changing rapidly. Tell us a little bit about Plex and what energizes you about your role there. Your audio, we don't get any audio there, Jim.
Sorry about that.
Yep.
I thought about how to answer that prompt, and I think what excites me the most is our active community of customers, and we in our food and beverage space. So we're kind of like a business within a business at Plex and our food and beverage group, and we do put a high premium on communications with customers, trying to understand, two-way communication, understand how things are going, what the needs are, where are the pinch points, what do we have to jump on from a product perspective in the cloud to make it all work for our food and beverage community, and then also, communication from us about what we're seeing and what's coming. And so we really have a wide variety of kinds of companies in this space. We have pet food and alcoholic beverages represented here today, but we have meat processors. We've also seen an expansion into the plant-based meat substitutes, I guess you call them. Candy making, food ingredients, spices, pickles and peppers, ice cream, bakery. So it's really, we could have fun at our meetings once we get past COVID and get on site, because it's a pretty good meal when you put together, all the customers and the things they make, and
Right.
and we get a little tipsy as well, thanks to Tara.
Right.
So that's a really fun part of it. The most fun part for me.
Great.
Is working with those customers to grow and advance our solution.
All right. Thanks, Jim. And to Craig's efforts at Barrett, I'm sure we could eat the dog food there as well and feel very safe about it. I'm not so sure about the flavor. I'm not that sure that would be appealing to me, but we'd be safe for sure. So let's getting to the topic at hand. We know there's a lot of inputs and variables to running a manufacturing facility efficiently. We could talk for a week about all the different variables and how you control those. But for the sake of today's discussion, we'd like to hear from each of you in the following areas: supply chain and inventory control, production, and quality. And given that the supply chain is really seems to be the most volatile right now, and understanding inventory control is super critical in any manufacturing operation. I thought we would start with that one, so start with that area. So, and Terrell, let's go back to you. Let's just hear from you from your perspective in terms of supply chain and inventory control. What are the most critical threats to operational efficiency in this area that you have to be aware of?
I think our big three is really more around inventory accuracy, waste, and making sure that we have the right ingredients. Yeah, like any manufacturer, especially with the food and the beverage, we have another little caveat, which is also we have the TTB, right? So our inventory accuracy around around alcohol must be spot on. There is absolutely no room for error. Otherwise, we are
Right.
heavily fined, or we could actually be shut down. So we have this other little nuance that we have to make sure we have absolutely spot on inventory.
Excellent. Thank you.
And then to go on, just kind of expand that a little bit, waste, right? We can't have things just come up missing, right? Again, with inventory, and then also we have to control the waste because again, the taxes and the TTB and everything are around the regulations around alcohol. And then like any other manufacturer, we just need to make sure we have the right ingredients to produce what we need to produce or when we plan to produce. And if we can't, especially in this crazy day and age, we have to be able to shift quickly and not shut down lines, but figure out what we can produce when we say we don't have an ingredient or missing something or not enough, or so on and so forth.
Okay, excellent. Nikki, I'll turn the question to you. I mean, do these threats resonate with you? Are these things that you keep an eye on, or do you have anything to add there from a supply chain inventory control standpoint?
Oh, definitely. Definitely, we also, it's making sure that the right materials are available when production is scheduled. We are extremely flexible for our customers. And so we've seen where they have a lot of unpredictable demand. And so we try to be able to adjust our schedule as much as possible. So if they forgot to order 100,000 pounds of something and they need to rush that, we will check to see if we have all the raw materials, how long it will take, seeing if we can, push that into our production schedule, and then just kind of manipulating everything else around it. Mm-hmm. And then we obviously have seen a lot of problems with just getting our raw materials here. Lead times have been extended. We don't know when containers are coming in. Something was on a truck, it was picked up, either it got missed or it was on an LTL and it won't show up still for another 2 weeks because we don't know where it went to. Mm-hmm. So just managing all of those just kind of problems and just constraints is a very just daily, we see that we have problems with, and just right now, just the tightness of all of our raw materials, as well as just prices going up and trying to work with our customers, not wanting to keep too much product or raw materials on hand, and just the balancing act between all of it.
Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about how you're using Plex to help mitigate those threats, how to or eliminate those threats. I think, Nikki, the last time I was in your facility, you mentioned that your planners, your raw material planners are focused on a daily basis on what's on hand and what's coming in, and notifications from your supply chain about extended lead times and so forth. So tell us a little bit about how you deal with that, how you use Plex to deal with that.
Definitely. So we, purchasing side, we use MRP daily, just making sure that if we have to adjust our schedule, seeing, okay, do we have everything here? Running just even through MRP, making sure, seeing if anything has been late. Previous to Plex, everything was done very manual. So in order for us to see if we needed to order raw materials, I would tally up the raw materials that we needed, or maybe let's say at that time, 2 weeks worth of production. Physically, our operators would have to go out and do a physical count to get me what was on hand, and then just go back to just calculating and seeing what we had to order. Now we use Plex, it's real time. We can see what raw materials we have on hand, what's already in our schedule for demand, and then seeing if we add in certain productions or move things around, kind of how that changes, and if we're able to do any adjustments on the fly a lot of times.
Thank you. Yeah, the using MRP at all is what I would consider to be a litmus test for the success of your ERP implementation for any organization. And it's great to hear that you say you're using it on a daily basis, like it's just part of your daily playbook. So that's good to hear.
Pat, I want to ask a follow-up there. You know, one of the foundations for MRP is accurate inventory, because as we all know, it's sort of the ultimate garbage in, garbage out machine if you don't have accurate on hand. So Nikki, how has that, you know, evolution happened for you as far as accurate quantities on hand?
We still do see that we have just some discrepancies with how accurate our inventory is. It's gotten a lot better with Plex. We have gone through, it's a lot of the training, and we do right now just the labor market and things. We have a lot of new employees, so a lot of new operators. And so it's hard to just instill in them what you're physically doing needs to also match what you're doing in Plex. So we do have to work on some of that training as we're going through and getting just new employees through our system. But our inventory accuracy has definitely, it's gotten a lot better since we've implemented Plex. And I would say it just year after year, it is getting a lot better. It's easy for us to do just kind of either cycle counts or just spot checks on inventory to see where we're sitting if we want to go check a few rows, which makes it it's a lot cleaner when we can run that through Plex.
And I recall last time I was out, you highlighted the idea when you do have a problem with inventory, which we all understand, right? No technology is going to do the work for you, right? You still have the human element, but I think you pointed out that it's very easy for you to quickly do root cause, and use it as a teaching moment.
Yes. Usually
and that's
whether it's looking at the container history, seeing maybe they didn't actually move it from the work center when they should have, or just not finishing out the process correctly, not using true up. So yes, it's easy for us to, once we find that discrepancy, a lot of times we can figure out how that happened and then correct. You know, how do we then not let it happen again?
Great. And Tara, I see you're doing a lot of head nodding there on some of this. So if we go back to some of your threats that you indicated: inventory accuracy, waste, and of course the TTB. Nobody wants to go to jail for not paying taxes. So tell us a little bit about how Drinkworks is using Plex to mitigate these threats.
Yeah, so it's similar to Nikki and her story, right? We were very, very much manual, right? We took inventory on paper before with tally marks, and some poor person then took all that paper and pen and entered it into a spreadsheet and hopefully did their calculations correctly. So I think the biggest change with it came from inventory is inventory cycle counts was an event, right? Plant shut down, all hands on deck, people counted for days. You didn't get a whole lot of employees that volunteered for that wonderful task, but it was an event, right? Now it's a spot check, like Nikki said. It's a process, right? It's no longer a huge event, and people don't mind it, and it's just something they do on a daily basis now. And I think that really greatly improved our inventory accuracy and our confidence of it as well.
Great, thank you. Craig, you mentioned something earlier about confirming inventory at the receiving process. Is there a quality step that you do to ensure the receipt of ingredients is is high quality?
Yeah, so during the finalizing of a receiving, product goes into a kind of a receiving status and locks it down from being able to be used until, you know, that receiving paperwork, everything has been reviewed by our QA team, confirmed that we got proper materials, things are meeting spec, and then big thing right now is ensuring that we can get mycotoxin testing done, and make sure product is released safely before being used.
Great. Yeah, I think I did recently read where mycotoxins were are a key issue in recalls that have actually happened. I don't recall the companies, but that's a definite risk that you have to monitor on a daily basis. Great, I appreciate that. Are either of you tracking your inventory by lots and then capturing attributes by lots and using that from a traceability standpoint? Tara, you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. So every ingredient has we have a very extensive list for our beverage team on all our ingredients per item, and it just really blows me away on how many attributes like sugar can have, or all these ingredients that are beverage development. Gosh, I can't even guess. Maybe 30 to 40 attributes per item, even to the allergen and the color and carbs and sugars and everything that makes up the nutrition label, right? So it's interesting. It starts at the beginning with the beverage development team and all their attributes, but then it also kind of goes backwards too, right? So if you're looking to say something had like a nut allergy in it, and oh my gosh, we didn't sanitize the machines right, or somebody claimed they had allergic reaction to something that they drank, then we can backtrack it, right, and figure out what ingredient used on what line, and then almost go backwards to figure out where the problem was. Luckily, those have been very few and far between claims, but Plex has helped us to track that within hours. Before, it was probably a week to track that down.
Great, thank you. One last question before we want to move on to focus on the production area. How do you guys, how do you track, how are you recording these inventory transactions? Are you barcoding? Are there labels on your product? Are you scanning? Nikki, you want to give us some feedback there?
Yes, so everything that comes into our facility on a raw material side is received in, and it gets a Plex label with a unique LPN, and then all of our locations also have barcodes so that it's moved correctly in Plex. And then anything that we've produced also gets another Plex label, barcode, and then we can track it throughout the entire process as well. So I mean, everything, all of our inventory is labeled and has barcodes.
Great, and that's the same for you, Tara?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Jim, would you say that's the norm in the Plex customer base?
Yes, I would, and it really is that key to the inventory accuracy. I mean, you can get transitioning from paper-based to barcode and scanning based is just you can get very large improvements in inventory accuracy quickly. I mean, you never take the human element out of it, but it helps human beings be a lot more consistent in what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely.
I used to have a saying, inventory is really only designed to be real time. Batch inventory is going to be wrong pretty much all the time. But we like to encourage our customers to record what happens, where it happens, and when it happens, so that the logical is tracking right along with the physical. So it's good to hear that you can do that. You can do that easily. So let's shift our conversation here to production specifically, and Tara, we'll go back to you, I guess, to start with. What are your biggest threats to production, to manufacturing efficiency in the area of production?
I would say that it would be in three areas. which is missing ingredients or packaging, right? That we didn't receive something that we expected. And then that's the quick shift into create something else, right? Unskilled labor force. And it's more of just the churn of employment, the high turnover rate, the new employees, things like that. And then also poor quality, right? So if our quality team, excuse me 1 minute. Excuse me. So also poor quality, right? So if something didn't pass the quality checks all along the process, then we have to stop production or reshift or backtrack or things like that. So I think those would be the big three in our area.
Mm-hmm. And Nikki, how about you? What would you say the biggest threats to production efficiency in the area of production?
Very similar. Mainly what happens is they missing raw material, mainly raw materials, packaging, not as much, but mainly on raw materials, and that's usually what will cause a change in our production schedule. We try to stay ahead of it, but I mean, that's kind of right now where we kind of see our biggest problems. Also, we are constantly hiring new employees, having to go through the training process. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, they don't. But that the turnover of employment right now as well is, does cause some problems for production, especially if we have people that are missing shifts, and a couple people on the same shift will cause an entire packaging line to not be able to package for that shift.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just moving. We have to move a lot of people around in our plant if other people are not able to make their shift, and so trying to keep everybody happy there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where we see our biggest problems.
Jim, how would you answer this question for the Plex customer base? What are the biggest threats? Would you say that you agree with what's been said?
Oh, certainly, yeah. Quality for sure, labor for sure, missing materials for sure. I guess I might add in, OEE type issues or, equipment issues. Terry, you're lucky to have like brand new lines, but I'm sure it doesn't necessarily insulate you from hardware, equipment problems. So really looking at downtime and changeovers, I guess would be another issue I'd highlight. So just from better scheduling alone to sort of do jobs in a proper sequence to minimize changeovers can be a huge help that Plex can help with. And then there's just also, from my old just-in-time consulting days, the idea of just really looking at those changeovers and, getting out a video camera, watch who's doing what and analyze them. You can usually take 50% or more out of the changeover time just by really focusing on it and making sure you have the right tools and the right training and procedures for the changeover. So that, I guess those are some off the top thoughts I'd add in there.
Great, thank you. Let's follow up on that scheduling. Tara, you mentioned earlier that the schedule used to be sticky notes around so what's the scheduling look like now in your plant? How does that run?
That's actually one thing we're implementing now. We're using Demand Caster. We're starting the implementation of that. That wasn't actually our first focus to bring Plex in, just because our schedule and our demand is a little different than kind of say a customer. Technically, we only have one customer. It's a big one. It's Anheuser-Busch. So our business is driven slightly different. But as we implement Demand Caster, then we can get a more finite schedule and a more powerful schedule.
Mm-hmm. Great. Nikki, how do your operators, how do they know what is scheduled to run next and what they need to produce?
Typically, we just use job dispatch, and so what I try to do is make sure from my end for a production side that the jobs are in the order that they would be running them, and then if we have to make any changes, I will adjust that schedule for them. The same with our packaging side. Our packaging, they go based off of the work center and the jobs in the order that they are in. We do, where needed, we do put some notes in so that if there's something special that has to happen with that specific production, but that's mainly how we schedule our productions now.
Mhm.
There's quite a bit of just fluidity in that. So the one nice thing is that you can quickly change jobs around, give them a new date, and you can have them pop up in job dispatch for your operators.
Then everybody knows about it right away, right?
Yep.
Everybody, including the material handlers as well as folks running the machines and recording production. Yeah, great. So what are the key metrics that you all use to track your production and your efficiency? Nikki, let's go back to you.
For us, we mainly review production numbers, whether it's pounds that were produced in the mill, our meat room side, or our bulk production side. We have reports that come out of Plex every day, so we can see that. We also monitor not only how many bags or cases are being packaged at each of our lines individually per day, but then also just the amount of pounds that are being packaged, which helps us just very quickly notice if our production or our packaging side is able to keep up with our production side, or if we foresee a problem coming up where they aren't keeping up and we may need to make some changes. And then individually looking at each line, we kind of have goals that are set for different packaging lines and how much we should be seeing them produce each day. And then also just maintaining whether or not we're able to stick to the schedule, even if there are changes, but we're still getting productions done in the amount of time that they should be getting completed.
Great. And Tara, I know your organization is going through a KPI rethink or re-energize. Where do you think you're going to land there in terms of things that are important for you to measure on the shop floor?
Yeah, we had way too many KPIs that just were meaningless to us. And I think where we're going to end up is basically the units produced and the waste or the scrap, right? And how much is that scrap costing us? I think that's their biggest focus, to units produced and waste.
Okay, gotcha. All right, let's. I'm just keeping an eye on time here. I know I want to get to quality so we can hear more from Craig, and that's such a big part of manufacturing efficiency. Craig, can you tell us what kind of quality certifications Barrett Pet Food has, and how you attain those and monitor those?
Yeah, so we are SQF certified, which falls under the food safety, the Global Food Safety Initiative. We've been SQF certified for about 3 years at this facility, and then we opened our facility in Little Falls just over a year ago. So we are also now certified at that facility as well. You know, some of the keys there that helped us tremendously were traceability. Prior to Plex, we were, you know, putting labels on everything, basically hand printed. Lot codes, nothing even had an item number. We were going by descriptions. And then batching records were all handwritten with lot codes, things like that. So, you know, once we implemented Plex, it kind of took us a long ways to being able to quickly do a trace exercise and be able to take what our mock recall was anywhere from, you know, a day to a week down to you know, less than an hour.
Wow.
You know, the toughest thing previously was tracing what the raw materials went into. So if we had something that was spread out between, you know, 5 to 10 production lots, that was not a quick report to pull. There was a lot of paperwork to shuffle through there. Now, you know, with the Plex lot trace report and some other modified reports that we have, it goes quite quickly.
That's an impressive improvement. Tara, what's your mock recall like? And I guess I should ask first, what are your quality standards that you have to abide by?
My quality team would shoot me right now. I cannot recite like what Craig just did. So I apologize that apparently I'm not the expert in quality. But I do know that they use Plex quite a bit. So apologize, I don't have those certifications and things like that. But I do totally agree with that traceability. That is huge. I mean, that was one of the biggest benefits and one of the reasons actually why we chose Plex is the traceability, right? Because simply if you had something that it was a unique ingredient for one pot, it was easier to trace, right? But now you take something like sugar, which is pretty much in every ingredient, and then you get down to a certain day it was received and things like that, and to backtrack was nearly impossible. Now we can again, within a day, within hours, get down to the exact pod down to this level and find out where that sugar was bad or that color or things like that. Again, one of the reasons we chose Plex, and it shines beautifully in all the traceability reports.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it is. It's one of the reasons that we partnered with them for so long. Is there's inventory, there's quality, they're all integrated right into the same platform, vertical platform. So all the information is right there. So mock recalls, we would say, is a definite value proposition that most of our customers are shooting for and achieve and attain. Jim, do you have anything to add in terms of the rest of the Plex customer base? Is this a pretty typical story you're hearing here?
It is. I mean, thankfully there's not many people that experience actual recalls, but the mock recalls are, a regular occurrence. And, to the extent that you can show that you're really on top of it, and an hour later you say, here's everything you asked for. Now the scrutiny everything goes a lot easier. And we also see it as a benefit of our Plex subscribers in working with their customers and prospects to be able to show a quality system and a recall capability that is tightly controlled. That's a huge benefit in our customers selling to their customers. So
it's an interesting perspective. Have you been called in by a customer to do that, Craig? I'm curious. To show off your quality systems?
Yeah, customers definitely like to see, having a tight traceability report, being able to, drill down to dates, times, containers were loaded or moved, things like that. Being able to get down to those details really kind of eases their mind on our abilities.
Oh, that's great. That's a really positive impact. Okay, we're coming right up at the close to the hour here. I want to just pause here and take a look and see if there are any questions coming from the audience. And do we have? Okay. Let's see. We have here one question. Is there is there a method to track audit compliance using Plex? So we talked about traceability and quality inspections and that sort of thing, but there's a whole area of compliance there. Jim, can you speak to that a little bit?
I sure could. So, the main ones people deal with are HACCP and SQF. And we do support upload of all the SQF standards into the software. We'll maintain them and provide that as, new versions get issued of the standard. And as far as HACCP, those can all be built into the quality control plans that you create, so that those critical control points you can ensure that, you know, production people cannot proceed without logging and registering all the necessary data. So we're big into supporting that for our customers, both on both sides of the house there.
Great, great. Here's another question. Are any of your operations production integrated to the actual machines? So I do think that Nikki, you folks are integrating your batch process. Is that correct?
Correct. So we are very close. We are doing some testing. So our batching system out in our mill and all the scales and everything, we're working on having the batches for what is actually being dropped in per batch is going to then just that information will just push to Plex. Currently, our operators have to key that in, which is where we see, which you're going to see a lot of human error, especially if we're 30 batches of something. And so hopefully that will also help just kind of our maintaining our inventory, because I do think that's kind of where we get off on our inventory as well, is just having our operators have to key in all of those batches into Plex. So that should help out that solution.
Great, great. And Tara, I thought I saw your head nodding a little bit. Are you folks are you integrating to machines at all?
We are starting to as well. We are not fully integrated, so we're kind of in a mix right now, but that is absolutely our plan to connect all of them.
And Jim, is that, can you describe what other Plex customers, how would you answer that question?
Well, a lot of our customers are using our integration and orchestration product for actually talking to PLCs and you know, both sending data down to PLCs on machines and then getting back production and other data so basically anything that you could do in the Plex control panel pretty much could be done on an automated basis without an operator. The other thing I'll mention is that this story is going to grow substantially. We are now a Rockwell automation company. So with that acquisition, obviously that MES side of the business and integration to machines, you know, Rockwell provides a lot of the control systems for those machines. You know, they interestingly have 6 or 7 large manufacturing plants themselves where they make all that and use this software. So that story is going to continue to evolve and grow for sure.
Yeah, great. Thank you. We have another question here. Does either company use Plex to track OEE on production lines? So are you tracking OEE right now, either Nikki or Tara? I know a lot of Plex customers do track OEE. Not sure if you folks are though.
Yeah, no.
What are you referencing for OEE?
You're not right now.
Downtime.
Yeah, downtime and overall equipment effectiveness. Yeah. So uptime, downtime. Yeah. Okay. There are many. Most of our customers track OEE in some way, shape, or form. You're probably watching downtime specifically, right, or uptime, and making sure that those numbers are accurate rather than doing a comprehensive OEE calculation. But that calculation does come right out of Plex if that's a metric that you want to monitor. All right, let me check to see if there are any other questions. All right. No more questions. So with that, we will adjourn the session. Again, thank you all very much. I appreciate your time today, Craig and Tara, Nikki, Jim. Thank you all, and all of you folks that joined the conference, the discussion today. Thanks for joining us. If you have any additional questions or you want to explore any of these organizations in a little deeper, or Plex a little bit deeper, please feel free to reach out via email or contact us at Revolution Group. we'd be happy to take care of your needs. Thank you all very much. With that, we'll close the session.
Thank
Have
you,
a great
everyone.
day.
Thank you.